this week we're going to be speaking to a few people who work in golf and are here at the HSBC Champions, starting with a man who always has to capture the perfect shot. We've come into the media centre to talk to Andrew Redington, Redders from Getty Images, a photographer of a long time standing out on the golf circuit. First of all, what does your job involve? What's the main skill of it? What makes a good photo?
Really, you're just looking to capture what's happening on the day. Probably, you've got to work a few aspects out. It will depend. If it's a photo call like we were doing today, we need to take into account the client's needs. There's a pretty significant brief. If you're at a tournament, then you're just looking to cover the tournament properly. There might be some corporate requirements and things like that, but otherwise you'll be just trying to cover it editorially.
When you're out on the course, actually taking the snaps out on the course, obviously there are lots of rules and protocol that photographers have to obey.
Yes, yeah, there are. They're a bit more strictly enforced in the States, but if we're on the European tour, we're given a bit more license to go around and get some good spots, which helps because you can just get some more creative imagery. In the US, there's a pretty strict 1 arm's length from the rope, so you compromise the pictures a bit that way.
And things have changed a lot, obviously, with digital technology and with the internet. I suppose once you've taken a photo, it's not long before it's zipping around the world.
No, that has changed massively. The days where we used to take portable chemicals and a portable lab with us, and then we used to process the film, dry them, scan them, send them back. It used to take us hours before we could send anything. Digital's just made its things so much easier.
Well, Justin, as a player, you come into contact, hopefully not too close contact, with photographers all the time. Tell us a little bit about Redders, one of the more seasoned pros out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get to know the same faces all year on tour, and for many years out on tour. And I think it's good to have a lot of confidence in the photographer out there that they do get into close proximity with you occasionally. But if you're lining up a putt, you know that you don't have to bark at him to get out the way because he understands what us players require. He understands that we don't like people in our eye line, and Redders has been a fixture out there on the golf course, and it's almost good when you're in contention. You see him out there, always give him a thumbs up and hey mate, how you doing? To have trust in the fact that he's not going to do anything wrong is big.
Some of the photos they take as well. Do you appreciate a good photo, a good position at the top of the backswing or something scenic?
Often I find myself wandering Getty Images to look at photos of myself, or sometimes even from a technical standpoint, looking at my golf swing, seeing an impact position, how I'm releasing the club, my posture with the putter, those sorts of things. So sometimes I can pick up a few tips from his work.
And you get to know these guys pretty well?
Yeah, I've got to know Redders more so because actually we both lived in Putney for a while. Unfortunately, I've moved on, but Redders is there in Putney, and we've bumped into each other at Gourmet Burger Kitchen and places like that, and had the odd pint together. So it's been nice to sort of get to know him off the course too.
Now, we saw quite a complicated photo shoot being arranged, and that brings all its difficulties and the intricacies of that and getting it set up.
It does. There's a lot of planning that goes in ahead by a PR firm, and they will then bring us in. There'll be some planning ahead of time, but on the day it's then just talking about the logistics of how that will work. Generally that goes quite smoothly. A lot of it is down to carrying out the plan that people have thought of already, making sure it works, but then it's just on the day just making sure you can manoeuvre players into positions. And generally I'm a familiar face to most of the guys, so if you can catch their eye or just ask them to move, they're pretty cooperative. So
you have to have quite a good laugh with them as well sometimes, be relaxed with them.
Absolutely, yeah. There's we've had some good times, particularly some of the Ryder Cup boys, the European boys. I'd had some good laughs with over the years, and we try and give them some photographs at the end of a year or throughout the year when they've won or things like that to make sure that they get some good imagery as well.
Have you ever been, as a commentator certainly have been out to the course, have you ever been barked at by a player?
I have, not that often.
Tell us who, go on, tell us who.
Kenneth Ferry.
Kenny Ferry.
Never forgotten it.
We're naming and shaming Kenny Ferry here. Andy, thanks very much for the moment.
Pleasure.